My name's Stuart. This is my colleague John Hughes. So we're both senior engineers at SOL-TEC, and I'll just spend the next few minutes just sharing some of our experiences with you all. We typically work on sort of BAU stuff, and also we get involved in projects as well as a lot of the cloud stuff as well. So we sort of had an experience with a lot of the on-prem stuff, and now we're sort of seeing the cloud-based things. So I'll share some of those experiences with you. So we'll be sort of approaching it from more of a technical stance. So Jason did an excellent job there, just showing you some of the user experiences. But we can now look at some of the aspects from more of a technical stance. So I thought we'd begin with looking at multi-factor authentication, and you can see some of the things that we'll go through as well. In addition to that, I'll spend quite a lot of time talking about mobile device management. Unfortunately, I wanted to show you how that works on the phone, and I wanted to use an iPhone to show that you can use it on Windows, of course, that goes without saying, but you can also use it on a non-Microsoft product. Unfortunately, I have to use a document scanner, so every time I need to do it, I need to dash across the room and do that, so you'll have to bear with me with that. But I'll spend quite a lot of time talking about device management. John is going to talk us through email encryption, litigation, hold, and so on, and we'll do link as well, and just show some of the functionality within that. Okay, so multi-factor authentication, you might already be familiar with this. We've deployed it before in an on-premise scenario, which we've done it through two-factor authentication. So it's quite involved. It's taken us quite a long time to do it. You've got to buy the software, learn it, install it, test it, and so on. Well, Microsoft's released this multi-factor authentication, which we found to be really good. I hope it doesn't let me down today when I'm demonstrating it, but which is very easy to set up. So you don't need to be a technical genius, because I'll actually show you in a minute how it actually works. Essentially, it just adds a second layer of authentication. So you've still got your password that you're logging into, say, OWA with, but you've got a second layer of authentication, which is predominantly going to be linked to your phone, but you can link it to anything. So you can have it so that you type your password in, then it rings you maybe on your desk phone, and then you just press to say, yes, I am who I say I am, and it will then go through. And we will try and demonstrate that a bit later on, or just in a moment. So it encrypts everything, it encrypts all traffic. So some applications don't understand multi-factor authentication. Like, for example, oh my goodness, the phone is ringing. So that I didn't expect to happen. We use soft phones at SOL-TEC, so it's one thing I didn't switch off. Yes, so it encrypts, or it's used for everything, but not everything understands multi-factor, and it's crashed now as well. So there's some things like, if I am to connect my iPhone to the cloud, well, my iPhone doesn't understand multi-factor. So there's a way around that, which is called app passwords, and I'll try and show you that as well shortly. Okay. Right, so what we'll do, I'll actually log into the portal, and you'll just have to bear with me while I just coordinate the screen here. Okay, right, so we'll begin, and I'll just start by showing how easy it is to set it up. So hopefully you can all see the screen, and you'll see it from the back. Okay, good. Right, so we've just got a demonstration tenant set up here in 365. You can see myself and John there. So the first task is just to enable it globally, and that's just a checkbox you have to tick, which I've already done. And once that's done, it's permanently on. From there on in, you can just click Setup, and then from there you can select the users that you want to be covered by multi-factor authentication. So I will select myself, and I'm just going to click Enable here. Okay, so you can see it's saying it's successful. Now that's it. That's actually all you have to do initially. So now that I've enabled multi-factor authentication, if I'm now to sign out, and then sign back in, we'll see the comparison of the two. So I still need to put my password in. That's not changed, as you'd expect with any sort of multi-factor authentication. But when I sign in for the first time, and bearing in mind, if you want to set this up for multiple users, you can actually have the 365 send out an email to people, explaining how to set it up so they're not confused about what on earth's going on. Okay, so it says that my admin is required to set additional security verification, and this is where the fun starts, because I have to dash across the room in a minute and try and get this to work. So there's a multiple number of options that we can use for this. So you don't have to use your phone, as I said earlier. You can use your office phone. I'm going to go and select to use the mobile app and click Configure. Now then, you may be familiar with the QR codes. So if I just go across here, actually I need to switch the screen on first. So I'm going to put you across onto the document scanner and just hope for the best, really. Now, although I prepared my slides, I didn't prepare my fingernail, which you're just about to be introduced to. So apologies for that. So from here, let's see if we can first of all get some focus on that. Try again. Okay, so you can all see the screen. Now from here, I can just select this multi-factor app, which you can just download from the App Store. You can deploy it using Intune, and we'll come on to that later because I'm going to show you some stuff that you can do in Intune as well. So I just need to go and do add, and then scan barcode. And then I'm just going to look back over here. I'm going to get a lot of exercise today, I can see it. And I'm just going to scan that QR code on the screen. Okay, so that's now sort of created a relationship or a trust between 365 and my device. Click Done. And so it just goes through. Let me just push you back over to here again. Okay, so you can see it's just doing a check. Okay, so it says it's configured it. Just click Next. Verify now. Now when I click Verify now, what's going to happen is, I can just show you this, is it's just going to pop up with a prompt, which you can just see there. And I just click Verify and Close, and that's pretty much it. And then from there on in, I'll just go back. You see verification successful, thank goodness for that. Okay. Right, now, so that's actually set up. So the next thing is, as I said, is a lot of apps don't understand multi-factor authentication. So here what we would do is you set up app passwords. So let's just say, for example, I want to use ActiveSync on my iPhone. I want to use Link at home on my desktop. What we can do is just set up individual app passwords, because when you log in, when you go home, you've enabled authentication two-factor. You go home, Link won't understand what your password is, and you'll just get, oh, it doesn't work. So what you need there is app passwords, and this is where you set them up. So it's very, very simple to set them up. I won't do that now, but trust me that works. So I will click.
Is that passwords, is that session-based or time-based?
No, it isn't session-based. They're just static passwords. You just type them in once, and that's it. And then they'll just be used for the lifetime. So the idea really is you do multiple ones, because then, say for example, you want to retire one. Let's just say like the laptop gets stolen at home and it had a link on it. You can just retire the link app password without your user then having to reset their Outlook, reset their whatever all the other things that they're using. So that's kind of the idea behind it. Okay, so that covers off sort of a multi-factor authentication. If there's any questions around that before we can move on to the next slide.
It's only if you've already got multi-factor authentication for other things, so sort of radius with hardware tokens, that sort of thing, RSA tags. You can't use that the same second factor of authentication with the Office 365. You can't sync it with another provider.
Well, we've typically done one or the other. So we normally use for that kind of thing. You'd normally do single sign-on, and we've typically used third parties, as I said. But this would more or less replace sort of the requirement for RSA tokens and RSA servers and so on. Yeah. So we'd probably, I wouldn't imagine you'd need to run them sort of side by side, but you probably could do if there would be certain aspects that you could run in coexistence.
I can jump in there as well if you don't want to.
Yeah.
If you wanted to, can you maintain that original two-factor authentication process you have now? You could look at ADFS. So if you implement ADFS to manage single sign-on for Office, you can then integrate that with pretty much any two-factor authentication. So radius is fine with that. Okay. but it means you configure single sign-on, which is a job in itself.
Right, okay, so if there's no further questions, let's move on to device management. So device management, as you're all aware, is becoming more and more of a requirement, because if you've got like a lot of your users have got mobile devices, the question that you want to be asking really is, well, what are we going to do if the device gets stolen? What are we going to do if it gets lost? What are we going to do if there's company data on there, but then and then that's being backed up or not being backed up, and it gets lost or it falls into the wrong hands? And these are the sort of questions that have prompted Microsoft, and we've got a number of solutions which I'll talk about. So one case here, which we would be a typical sort of case, is you might have a requirement where senior management may say, well, look, we're happy for people to bring their own device, but they have to use complex passwords. The device needs to be able to be wiped, and it has to be encrypted. And when I say encrypted, I mean the actual contents on the device. Obviously, the traffic between the device and 365 is encrypted, but if the device gets stolen, we all know that if you plug a device into a laptop, you get mass storage, it turns into mass storage, and so on. Well, that content needs to be encrypted, or certainly can be. So with 365, and I'll talk about the sort of two methods that we predominantly use. Firstly, it's 365 for device management, but also Windows Intune, and we'll come on to that in a moment. So with 365, it's quite nice because you don't have to redo anything. When the person connects to the cloud with ActiveSync, it just works, and you just get some degree of manageability. You don't have to enroll it or set it up, it just happens. And I'll show you that interface. So you can just do, these are the basic functions that we can sort of administer with 365: passwords, complexity, encryption, and wiping the device. So it's not really as extensive as what we can do with Windows Intune, but we'll look at that afterwards. Okay, so I'll now just log into the console, and you can see for yourselves. Once I've changed the screen. Okay, so we're logged into to the 365 portal. Right, so I think there's two sort of ways that this can be managed. The first is from the user experience. So the user gets the ability to wipe their own devices, which is pretty handy. So if your user logs, loses their phone, they can actually go wipe it themselves, which is great. They don't need to log a ticket. They don't even need to tell the embarrassing story. They can just log into their OWA and do it themselves. So hopefully the Microsoft Internet connection, although you are almost there, right, we're in. So from here, the user just goes to the cog once they're logged into OWA, select options. And then from here, they just click onto phone. You'll see all the phones that are connected at the moment. You'll see that my iPhone is connected there. And then there's just a number of options along the top where you can just wipe the device. It's as simple as that. Now, unfortunately, that wipes the entire device. So if you've got family pictures on there, videos, whatever you have on your phone, that's gone. And that's one of the downsides, is not as much support. Whereas we'll come on to later, we can actually do selective wipes with 365 with Windows Intune. So that's the user experience. As an administrator, we can if we just go into the Exchange console, and then if we just click onto mobile, there's a few more options. It's quite limited. There's not a lot here, but it's still a very useful set of features. Quarantine devices. So you can say, well, I don't really like Android devices very much because allegiance to Microsoft. So you can say, well, I don't want any of a certain type of device connecting, and they just get quarantined when they try and connect. Or you can say, well, I don't want any devices connecting unless I accept them and let them in, so to speak. So all devices would then be quarantined, and then you can actually let them through. Now, there's a couple of policies here. So this is just a default policy. And if I just look at the security tab, you can just select these options are self-explanatory. Require password, complexity, alphanumeric. There's device encryption here as well, and all the sort of things you'd expect that we spoke about earlier. Okay, so that's really more or less the management from the 365 point of view. So you've seen how easy it is for us as administrators now. Really simple to go and do basic management tasks. So let's talk now about Windows Intune, and I have Paul's slides here as well, so I don't want to start diversifying too much and selecting the wrong slides. Okay. Any questions so far with regards to 365 device management?
One question I have is around the device wipe.
Right.
As I said, currently it's the whole device
Yes,
that
it
gets
is.
wiped. Is there anything in the roadmap to alter that, or is it just the alternative of the next product we're going
That's a
into?
good question, and to be honest, I'd have to defer to Microsoft on that. I'm not sure, but I guess because they're offering the additional functionality within Intune, then it's covered off within a suite of products. But it certainly isn't with 365, and I really don't know, to be honest with you, whether or not it would or not. I wouldn't be surprised if it did, because it's quite a useful feature, and it's obviously already available in other products. Any other questions? Okay, so we'll talk about briefly. I don't know if I could just have a show of hands of people that have deployed Intune or are familiar with Windows Intune. Oh, I'll definitely explain it then. Okay, there's a few. So I struggled really first not to call it iTunes, and it took me a long time to do that. And by the time I'd done that, I was then talking to my friends about iTunes, calling it Intune, and they're like, what are you talking about? So that's the first frustration. But apart from that, we found it very useful. So Windows Intune is really just a central cloud-based service with a number of offerings. It enables you to do all your patching, and this isn't for the servers, this is for desktops. So you can patch your desktops, critical updates, roll-up packs, and so on, and as well as non-Microsoft roll-up. So we had recently wanted to deploy Flash and Java because it was out of date for one of our customers, 50 machines. Update the patch, pushes it out. Within a couple of hours, everyone that had their PCs were on had up-to-date patches. So it's quite easy to use, and it's also nice because it doesn't depend upon being connected to a LAN network. You can also deploy apps with it, and I'll show you that in a minute, how that works, as well as inventory and reporting, alerting. So you can do a lot of alerting. Obviously, it's well out of the scope of what we're talking about today, but just so you know roughly what I'm about to show you. So we can do alerting on desktops. There's a massive range of different things that you can alert on. It does antivirus and anti-spyware. I think it principally uses Microsoft Security Essentials, if you may already be familiar with that. So you can deploy antivirus as well. And it can also manage a firewall. And obviously, pivotably, device management, which is what we're really going to talk about in a moment. So do you like that? So really, we can talk about a similar business case here that we talked about with 365, but we'll also add, perhaps we want to disable the camera feature, and we want to be able to do the selective wipe as well, which is probably much more appealing. So we can do selective wipes. There's quite a large range of policies which you can apply against devices, which we'll look at. Deploy line of business apps. You can even reset passcodes. So if you've got an iPhone and you forget the passcode, you could actually reset it using Intune, and publishing apps as well. So I've published a few apps, a few business productivity apps to my iPhone, and I'll show you those. So just bear with me, and I'll swap this over, and we'll have a look at the iTunes console. Right, now I may have timed out. Now the thing is here that it has. So because Windows 365 and Intune are linked together in this case, or we've linked them together, which is what we do for our customers. We always link their 365 with their Intune. And so that means that also the two-factor authentication also automatically now works through iTunes as well. Intune. Goodness, I'm going to be saying this the rest of the day now. So. Okay, so I've got a prompt. I won't go back over because you've already seen it, but I get a prompt here just to verify so that I can log into Intune.